Hello everybody, I got in touch with Kate today and I asked her if I could mirror her video, and she wrote back she wasn't sure what I meant by mirroring, but I could do it. So she obviously knew somehow I was probably going to copy it. But anyway, what it is this is a a message that she gave the other day. Thank you very much, Kate.
Hey health seekers, it's Kate Shimirani here, natural nurse in a toxic world. And there's kind of a goofy video going around about me, which is kind of pathetic really, and I don't really care, because the reason I don't care, no matter how many times trolls try and post it, is I know the truth. So I've read the studies, I've read the papers, I've done years of research. So when you post stuff like that, you just come from a place of ignorance, and it doesn't bother me, it doesn't affect me. It's quite sad that you've taken all your time in trying to discredit me instead of trying to look at maybe some of the things I'm saying. And when you start reading it, the truth's going to set you free. So I just want to talk a little bit here about, I started as a nurse in 1984, and I thought, it was there to save people and it was amazing. And I'm kind of old school, you don't go out in your uniform. Just want to point out, I keep seeing a lot of people out in their scrubs and their uniforms shopping. If there was a real virus or real thing that's going to kill us all, would you be going in and out of the hospital with your uniform and transferring it to the supermarket and everywhere else? No. In my day, you'd have been sacked for that. So the Rockefeller Foundation, it's funded everything through history. They're really rich. They're one of these global elites. They actually funded the suffragette movement because they wanted to get the other half of the workforce into work so they could tax them, and they wanted to get the kids into school so they could teach them their system. That's fact. It was the Rockefeller Foundation as well that in the war, they funded the whole Cyclone Z, the gas that they used to gas the Jews. They funded the whole fluoride that was put in the water, and dentists and doctors just accepted it, that it's good for your teeth. And it's actually not good for your teeth at all. It's not good for your body. It's a toxin, massive toxin. There was a study done in, I can't remember, it was 2008, something like that, on children and how it massively drops their IQ. And for those who mock me for saying that, you see, one of my hobbies is reading, and there's one of my greatest pleasures to myself is buying myself books. That's right, I buy books and I read and I educate myself. Fluoride in the drinking water, a scientific review of EPAS standards. It's really interesting, this. And then when you start going down the rabbit holes and you're looking down the references, you just think to yourself, they've poisoned me. They've actually poisoned me. And even, when you mix fluoride with BPA, that's in all the plastic bottles, it's in the lining of all your cartons or your cans. Fluoride plus the BPA is responsible for expressing 138 genes. And this is why you see, I believe it's Ireland has the highest rate of melanoma in the Northern Hemisphere. Melanoma. Don't we get told that you get that from getting the sun on you? No. Most melanomas are on the trunk and the limbs where you don't get the sun. It's because of the fluoride that's in the water. And then they're the biggest tea drinkers as well, and tea leaves concentrate natural fluoride. Anyway, it's a different topic. So going back to the Rockefellers, they then went in and they took over the whole medical industry, and I'm calling it industry because it is an industry. It's there to get you sick, make you sick, keep you sick, kill you, and charge you all the way along. It's an industry. There's no profit to be made in cure, so they need you sick, and they need you on all their drugs. And what they did was the Rockefeller Foundation, they got rid of every other form. They got rid of all the naturopathic doctors, the nutritionists, the herbalists, the acupuncturists. They got rid of them all. You couldn't even get a license without going to the Rockefeller Foundation if you were a naturopathic doctor. So they got rid of all the naturopathic schools. And they put 2 members of their board, 2 members on the board, 2 members of their management. They pumped loads of money into all the medical schools, provided all the equipment. And so what you have is doctors just trained in the Rockefeller way. And they did this to further push the agenda of pharmaceutical drugs, vaccines, and antibiotics, and all these drugs for degenerative disease. So Big Pharma chooses the medical elite. They decide who gets the top jobs. They decide what gets published. And it's really difficult for doctors and scientists who can refute what they're saying to do it, because they'll lose their jobs, they'll lose their livelihoods, they'll get discredited. They're trying to discredit me, but I really don't care. And most of the advertising budget, I believe, is about 70% in media. And we know that they're the lying lies of lies as well. The BBC is just the bullcrap channel. I'm not even going to be paying my licence. That's getting cancelled. But that's funded by pharma. So they just push the same agenda. Now, for me, I went into nursing school and I was taught, lots of things that when I got cancer, I realised I'd been lied to on a massive scale. And once I started going down those holes of what actually cancer was and how you could reverse it, but that's not in the system because it generates so much money. And the charities, Breast Cancer Now, I've talked about that. They're in bed with Pfizer. Pfizer make all the drugs for breast cancer. So they don't want you to not get breast cancer or even be cured of breast cancer. They want everybody on the drugs. I think they made something like 600 billion in profit in oncology drugs. So do you see? It used to be that there was two things in life you could absolutely be assured of, and it was death and taxes. Well, now cancer's guaranteed to make you money. So all of these people, all of our government, they're all invested in pharmaceutical companies. Absolute bandits, gangsters. So what we have is, we're told that vaccines, for instance, are safe, and they're not. No vaccine has ever passed a safety test. It's never been proven safe. It's never been proven effective. And all these people out there that keep spouting the narrative and they go, well, vaccines cured measles. No, it didn't. Measles had almost gone by 98% before the vaccine even came in. And what that was better sanitation, better food, better medical care, better living conditions. So when you get great disasters, you start to see measles again. But what it actually is, you can't actually catch a virus. That was another lie that was put in by the Rockefeller Foundation. It's natural when your body starts to clean up toxins. It's completely normal. And I have got an interview with Dr. Andrew Kaufman. You should watch it. So it's the same, we're told they're sterile. They're not even sterile. I mean, they have aluminium in them, mercury. These are really toxic. That vitamin K shot that they give the baby, the aluminium in it, it's catastrophic. They give it your baby straight away when it's born, in the heel. They have viruses, funguses, mold. They have immortalized cell lines in. I mean, I heard a nurse saying, oh, that was years ago. No. It's still there. And the longer it goes on, they've even admitted it, it just becomes more tumorigenic, which is why they've been slaughtering babies. I believe it was in Sweden, where they pull the head down, clamp the head, drill a hole in the head, suck out the brain, and then they have an abortion. But they do that while the baby's in vitro. Yeah, murder, nice. And they do water births where they're taking the babies out in the sacks to take away the organs, the liver, the kidneys. These babies are alive, and they're doing it because they know these immortalized cell lines are just causing cancer. And where's your evidence of all this? 1 in 2 get cancer, set to rise to everyone. Remember I said Breast Cancer Now, I've got that on their paper. Everyone's going to have cancer, and everyone's going to live. Live and live what? Live well? Have a bald head from all the chemotherapy? So they're actually saying on these charities everyone's going to get cancer. So I mean, I started to look down everything, and the missing microbes, all your immunity begins in your gut. Like I said, one of my biggest pleasures is buying books and just reading, and then I find the references. I start researching the references. I didn't learn any of this in nursing school. I learned everyone needs a vaccine. It's good for your immunity. It gives you little bits of the disease, and then you become immune. That's kind of what we were taught. And you get antibodies to it, or they give you a dead one, or they give you the antibodies from it. It's really kind of basic, but rubbish and total lies. I mean, there's even male foreskins in these things. It's just so thick and twisted. It's so vile. And the whole blood ritual that they do as well, that's a whole different topic. So the viruses, like I say, you can't catch. I'm going to read you something as well about antibodies. Loads of people are asking me about, oh, what about the antibody tests? It's rubbish. Now, just to say, I did a video on that 80% false positive test for the COVID-19. And now you've got the CDC and the FDA saying don't trust that test. You know, it might not be correct. And then we've got Nurse Erin, who she came out and she videoed with secret cameras. She filmed it all of how patients were being murdered in America, in New York. They were getting people coming in with just anxiety, and they were saying, you've got COVID-19. Even though she had a camera on the screen, it showed they didn't have COVID-19. And they said, we need to sedate you and put you on a ventilator. I've never known that in my life, in my whole nursing career. I've seen it with head injuries, that you sedate them to get them on a ventilator to maximum perfuse the brain with oxygen. But I've not seen people walking in with anxiety and hyperventilating, sedating them, putting them on the ventilator, and then suddenly they do not resuscitate. And then this poor guy, 37, was killed. Do not resuscitate, and they killed him. And this, if this is happening, it's happened a lot there, it's going to be happening all over the world. Don't try and tell me it's not happening here in the UK. I've had so many patients' relatives come to me. I've even had nurses come to me firsthand and tell me stuff that's going on. So if anyone says that I'm bringing the profession into disrepute, no, you are. You're bringing it into disrepute, because if you're seeing things and you're not speaking out about it, you're complicit. I read genocide out, incidentally, on the radio. Genocide, what the genocide is. You should go look at it. Go look it up. Look it up. And you have a look, all the points on there. Doesn't carry any time limit, none at all. So Nurse Erin's come out and she's videoed it. And I have a duty as a citizen to stop genocide. We all do. And under my nursing and midwifery code, I have a duty to protect the patients. So I'm talking about what I'm seeing. I'm talking about what I know, what I'm finding out, what is non-factual, what is a lie, what has been a lie perpetuated for a long time. So in hospitals, when I trained, the food used to be made on site, and then what was left, it went to the pigs. Now, the food's, it's crap. It's complete garbage. And I'm also a personal nutritionist, so I've got a diploma in that. But most of what I've learned about nutrition and reversing disease is self-taught. And I've learned so much, and I'm still learning. And it's fantastic. And I've seen amazing reversal of disease. And for all of you out there who think you're discovering something new, I had lobular invasive grade 3 breast cancer with a high pleomorphic presentation. After surgery, on day 2, I was reading Dr. Max Gerson's report, 50 cases in the China study, and I knew I'd made a mistake. I left with 5 drains, not the best idea, but I declined chemotherapy, radiotherapy, tamoxifen, Zoladex in favour of the Gerson therapy, mistletoe injections, high-dose vitamin C, and B17 tablet protocol. My choice. I read 3 papers, 3 scientific evidence-based papers. Now, it was my choice. That was what I chose. Now, if I had my time again, I wouldn't have had the surgery. I'd have had my implants removed because I had breast augmentation. I'd have had the tumours injected with mistletoe, and I'd have then done everything that I'm doing, because the 3 studies I read, didn't matter what I was doing, the outcome was no survival at 5 years with everything on the complement. So I don't care who you want to talk about that. Who cares? It's old hat. I'm still here 8.5 years later. God decides when I die. So you can go research all you like. You're not uncovering anything that's a lie or hidden. I don't really care. I don't care what you say about me, because God decides when I die. And I know I'm speaking the truth. That's why I really don't care what you think you're saying. I don't care if you laugh at me, because ultimately, when you have that vaccine that's contaminated, and already Dr. Judy Mikovich, who worked with Dr. Fauci, they had her dragged from her house and thrown in prison, then a gagging order, and threatened her because they didn't want her to speak the truth. She's already said, you have that new vaccine. That vaccine is like no other vaccine. Don't forget, no vaccines passed a safety study. And Bill Gates said he's going to cut some safety corners. This one's come out really quick. All the macaque monkeys got sick. 20% of those in America that had the tests, the test shot, ended up having to have emergency treatment. And just a pointer, everyone keeps sending me these letters that they're getting to do the tests. What is it? Ipsos Maori, the company that's managing all these tests, translates, it's Latin, they die. Remember, they want to put it in plain view. These are Satanists. They want to tell you what they're doing. And I don't care what you say about me. I really don't. You don't bother me. I just pray for you. So basically, Dr. Mikovich said, if they have that vaccine, they're going to die. Millions are going to die, and they're going to call it the virus. Now, there's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit going on because of the 80 patients that died in Italy, and the Italian government ignored what the World Health Organization said. Remember, everyone, even if you found dead on the road and a truck's hit you, they test you. If you test positive with this phony test, it goes in the stats for COVID. So it's all a lie. It's all just plandemic, scandemic. The 80 patients in Italy that's supposed to have died of COVID-19, all at autopsy died of disseminated intravascular coagulation. That's where all your blood starts to clot through high fibrin. And they all had the flu vaccine. And one gentleman that I'm interviewing was telling me the anthrax vaccine that they gave to the soldiers in the Gulf War, similar thing happened to them. And all these patients, and it affects the clotting factor in your blood. All these people that died in Italy, they'd all got the same thing, COVID fingers and toes, where they've got poor circulation. And remember, we're being told that the children now have something from COVID-19, Kawasaki disease. Well, the kids all had the flu vaccine up the nose as well. And the flu vaccine, one of those flu vaccines, had 4 influenzas in them, untested, and H1N1, highly pathogenic in those flu vaccines. And if you've had a flu vaccine in the last 10 years, you're going to test positive with that COVID test anyway, because it's done in canine RNA, and dogs have more coronaviruses than anything else. Slightly digressing. So going back to hospitals, you need the right amount of protein for tissue synthesis for you to heal. And that can be, well, the best protein really, if you've got cancer, for instance, is plant protein, because when you increase the animal protein, your T lymphocytes, which you need to kill cancer, go down. When you limit the amount of animal protein, T lymphocytes go up. But the dietitians don't know that. So what they do is when the patient feels a bit sick, they come around with these Ensure drinks. I mean, they're garbage in a can. You pour Ensure into somebody that's got cancer, it's literally like putting petrol on a barbecue. Just makes those tumours grow. And then in all your hospital foyers, don't forget, what do they sell in the UK? McDonald's, Domino's Pizzas, Costa Coffee. It's all this garbage food, Subway sandwiches. So all these people that feel sick, they're going down and eating all these foods that got MSG on them, monosodium glutamate, which makes them so tasty. Do you know what monosodium glutamate does when you put it on cancer? Makes it grow. So do you see, these hospitals, they're not there for healthcare. I don't know where anyone called it the healthcare. It's like the industry formerly known as healthcare. So right from the very top, you have garbage food, a hospital full of 5G. I've not even got onto that yet. Absolutely full of it. And there's been studies to show, actual studies to show, within 3 generations of having that amount of electromagnetic radiation, only 1 in 8 babies is going to be born normal. Within 5 generations, entire species are going to be extinct. And there was a doctor, I haven't got his name in front of me or her name, I don't know whether it's a man or a female, that actually studied that, actually did a study on that. And of all the biological life form that it affects and destroys, viruses and bacteria become even more virulent. And bacteria becomes resistant to antibacterial treatment. So you'd think in these hospitals, formerly known as healthcare, if they wanted to really make it healthy, they'd stop all this electromagnetic radiation, or maybe have it in a separate building that you go for these diagnostic tests, but then have the patients that are healing way away from all that. Have kitchens that do bone broth, do raw milk, which is what Florence Nightingale gave to the soldiers. Everything begins in the gut. All your healing begins in the gut. Your immunity begins in the gut. I wasn't taught that in nursing. I don't even think they teach it in medical school. So all you nurses that are trying to, a lot of you are really nasty. A lot of you are really good. There's really good nurses out there and there's really awful ones. And we all know that, we've seen it. Same as doctors, good, bad. Same as decorators, good, bad. Cops, good, bad. We're all seeing it. Don't think it's any different. I just want to say something incidentally. I did a panel with Celeste Salom. She worked with the Bush administration on the FEMA camps. And she was telling me about the little nanoparticles that were in vaccines and how they're activated by your stomach acid. And they're also activated by the electromagnetic radiation, and they fuse with your tissue. And they kind of monitor your thoughts, processes. They can make you think a certain way. This is fact. But what's something that she told me that was really interesting, just before she left and she became a whistleblower and they killed her husband, she said someone whispered in her ear and told her that she was going to be lifted up to hero status, and she knew what that meant. She says, when they make you a hero, it's before they kill you. That always goes through my head when I see what they're doing, where they tell the nurses that they're heroes. And now they're going to say to you, you can have this vaccine first. Remember, Dr. Judy Mikovich has said, whoever gets that vaccine is going to die. And I also know that all vaccines are contaminated with something that has absolutely no place in them. And that electromagnetic radiation, when you've got that in it, it just makes you sit like an antenna. And don't forget, I've already said, all you cops with your radios, your antennas, they've been laying that everywhere. It's worth $17 trillion. They laid it underground, it'd be safe, but no, they've put the big towers up everywhere. It's really dangerous. That's the whole grid. Boris Johnson spoke about it last year in his United Nations speech, 2019. Go and look at it. You can laugh at me all you want. I'm just telling you what's out there in the public domain. But anyway, so they're saying that the nurses are going to get it first. So they've lifted you to hero status. That's going to be interesting. I'd be really worried. Then they're saying that those black and ethnic minorities are more susceptible to this SARS-CoV that was probably, I'd lay money, it was added to the flu vaccines of last year. They're saying that you're more susceptible. So now you've got Bill Gates, that gangster, and his wife with the upside down cross around her neck, Satanist, saying they're going to offer the black people the vaccines next. Do you really want to be having that? I hope there's loads of you out there watching this video. You really don't want to have it. They're trying to kill you. That's fact. They're going to take this video down, download it, share it everywhere. So I'm just saying to you, I kind of know all this. I've researched it all. So when you post your goofy videos about me, I don't care, because I kind of know what's coming. Economic collapse, prick and chip, hook you up to the system so they can actually, you know, that chip, incidentally, when it's in you, they'll know when you're even starting to get a temperature. That might be something completely different. And they've already passed the Tracing Act in one part in America where they can come into your house, drag you out your house. That's fact. And if you don't test positive and your kids do, then they'll take your kids. They've already started to set up teams to take care of the kids. Imagine you're a woman nursing your baby on the breast. You test negative and your baby doesn't. You test negative and your baby tests positive. They're going to take your baby off you. I'm interviewing a lady who they did just that in the UK. She gave birth. She was negative. She gave birth. They tested the baby. Positives. Took the baby away from her for 5 days. 5 days. She didn't see her newborn baby. I mean, I can't imagine the trauma she went through. It's horrific. Now the baby won't latch on to breastfeed because they gave it formula milk. This is all happening while you're all sitting there pulling monuments down and statues. It's a distraction. It's Act 2 of the pandemic. So they can bring in Act 3, martial law, Act 4, chip, prick, track and trace, starvation, economic collapse, Act 5, depopulation. So I just want to read you actually, because people keep asking me about the antibody test. So I'm going to read it from a book because this is where I learned a lot of it and then went off and read a lot of other stuff. But this one's really easy for you to understand. I mostly acknowledge that the medical professionals really believe their antibody tests confirm disease. This is due to a general lack of education on the part of the medical professionals in the comprehension of any other way of in the comprehension of any other way of thinking besides what has been taught in medical school. The truth is, these antibody tests are most likely testing for generalized level of blood toxicity due to poor dietary habits, prescribed and over-the-counter medications. Antibodies do have a purpose in the body, and that is a secondary line of defense to white blood cells in the systemic cleanup of the body garbage. This is primarily the cleanup of the large protein molecules that have made their way into the blood and intracellular fluids. These large protein molecules and the antibodies created to eliminate them are what we create the positive antibody test result for any given disease. From this information, medical professionals usually misunderstand the test's true meaning and connect the dots of their limited education to form some patty line diagnosis. I mean, let me tell you, I thought AIDS was something that was in the gay community because they get HIV and then it goes into full-blown AIDS. And even that's a lie. HIV is another innocuous virus that doesn't lead to AIDS. AIDS was leukocytopenia that was renamed by the CDC. And then what they did was, a lot of the guys in the 70s and that did a lot of drugs and partying alcohol, poor lifestyle. So they'd be really toxic and they'd get sick. Because remember, when you're toxic, your exosomes come out your cell, soak up the toxins, take it off your immune cells, and whichever cell's got the key to undo the lock on that exosome will open it and get rid of it. It's part of your immune system. So they would get that and they would test them, oh, HIV, and then they would give them the drug. And the drug is what would cause that, what they call full-blown AIDS, the leukocytopenia. Because people that got leukocytopenia were really toxic people. It's the same as Ebola. Ebola, it has a patent on it. I'm trying to think of, so lots of these diseases that we're told about, they've got patents. How can you have a patent on something that's supposed to be wild and out there? It's all a lie. It's all a massive lie. I've gone down so many rabbit holes and I'm still going down them. And I want you guys to all learn that you're being lied to. The whole thing that you can catch this dreaded thing and it's going to kill us. Look at the death rates. It's so low, even of the ones that they have said have got this thing. It's so low. Now they've got everyone wearing a mask, which is really dangerous. And I'm seeing babies and kids with masks. You're going to kill loads of kids. People are going to die from wearing masks, increasing your chance of a bacterial lung infection. You're breathing back in your CO2. You're supposed to breathe it out as part of getting rid of toxins. You're going to start killing people with the masks. The 6 foot apart is for facial recognition. I mean, this is the biggest hoax ever. Lockstep, Rockefeller Foundation, Lockstep. Then you've got Event 201. And then I know there was a great big thing that was ran by, I think it was the World Health Organization last year, which somebody's come to me who was at that, where they talked all the shareholders and it was a vaccine gathering. And they talked about how there was going to be a pandemic this year that would kill 65 million. Do you see? They planned all this and they're planning the economic collapse. Now, one last thing I want to say to you folks, because this is something that I'm really researching now that's kind of really freaked me out a bit. When I was 23 years old, I worked in reception recovery of theatres, and I saw a woman that had a brain hemorrhage. She was about 40, and they kept her on a ventilator, and then they brought her down to do harvesting. And so they took her eyes, and the Papworth team came and took her heart and lungs, and they took her liver and her kidneys and everything else. And she came out of theatre, and I can remember seeing her before she went in and when she came out. I've seen lots of dead bodies. I've seen people as they die, when they're dying, traumatic death. I've held fetuses in my hand. I've held embryos in my hand. I've picked an aborted arm up out of a shower base when a woman had a suction termination and she'd got retained products and this little severed arm. I've just about seen it all, together with all the stuff that the cats have brought in. But this woman was completely bloodless, exsanguinated, because they'd done all this suction, removed all her organs. And I remembered it. I can still see her now, and I'm 54. So on May the 20th this year, in the UK, everyone's an organ donor unless you opt out. I've opted out. You just Google opt out of organ donor and it will give you a form. I've opted out. And I've advised everyone else, opt out. Absolutely opt out. Let me tell you something, what I'm going into now. There's no such thing as brain death. It's a complete and utter lie. It is a lie. Now, there's a very famous, he was a neonatal top doctor with the newborns, and he's also a Christian man, but he's quite old, and I'm hoping to interview him. But I started looking at his work and then looking at loads more work and listening to what he'd said and researching it. So the eugenics program before the Second World War, the doctors were doing it. They were harvesting organs and doing the eugenics work. Then the war broke out, and all those doctors went to work in the concentration camps and continued their hideous eugenics program on the prisoners. And then, after the Second World War, I think it was about 7 of them were killed in the Nuremberg trials, and the rest, using Operation Paperclip, were spirited out of Germany, and they went to work for IG Farben, Bayer, all the pharmaceutical companies to continue their eugenics program. And they all came up with the brain dead and this script that they say to the relative. Now, this doctor, because ideal organ donors are children and young adults. And this doctor was saying, patients that they'd said we want to use them for organ donor have now grown up, gone to college, got married, and yet they were told they were brain dead. So this is a massive lie. And now everyone's an organ donor unless you opt out. If you can't see all these dots joining up, and you know what? Nobody can come to me and laugh at me for saying this and refute it, because it's the truth and it's fact and it can be proven. So you can make as many goofy videos as you like. Go on, waste your time, I don't care. But this is fact. So when I see all these Nightingale wards that they've now extended it to keep them open again, and all these ventilators, and we know that the ventilators were killing the patients. Nurse Erin said every patient that went on the ventilator in New York all died, except the one guy that didn't sedate enough when he came to and pulled his ET tube out. So, you know, folks, no vaccine has ever been tested with another vaccine. When you give a drug, when you give that drug with a different drug at the same time, it affects the efficacy of that drug. So you can have a drug that will have an effect on the human body. When you give another drug at the same time, it might inflate the effect of the first drug, and you could actually overdose the patient. But you wouldn't overdose them if you gave the one drug on its own, but when you give the two drugs together, you can overdose them on the first drug, if you understand what I'm trying to say. No vaccine has ever been tested together, yet they take your newborn babies and they give them loads of vaccines all at once. With all these vaccines, I've explained what's in them. And they cause autoimmune disease, they cause cancer, they cause encephalitis, inflammation of the brain, they cause fits, they cause sudden death, they cause lots of problems with the brain, they cause you to keep having seizures, they cause you to have brain damage. This is fact, absolute fact. Mental disorders, no one of those vaccines has been tested with the other vaccine. Now that goes against the Nuremberg Act. That means that those babies are being tested on. It goes against the Nuremberg Act. Now who's delivering those vaccines? You nurses, you pharmacists and doctors that A, you don't know the ingredients, you don't know how they react in the body, you don't certainly tell the patients, and I know that for a fact with the HPV vaccine, you give them this little crappy Public Health England leaflet. It doesn't tell the girls what it's going to do. That's the most dangerous vaccine to date. Doesn't tell them. Don't forget the new one though that's coming in that's going to change your genetic code, change you forever. You don't tell them. You don't tell them what's in that vaccine because you don't even know. And nurses don't even know. I heard the most ridiculous nurse say, oh, it's got as much aluminium in it as what you eat. Oh, no, no, no. If you don't know what's in it, you don't know the effect on the human body, you haven't told the patient, in a court of law, it's medical battery. And why do you think all of the vaccine manufacturers are exempt from prosecution? They can't be held liable because there was an act, so they couldn't be. And CDC was found guilty in a court of law for lying about a vaccine recently. Yes, it did cause autism. So it goes against the Nuremberg Code. So if it goes against the Nuremberg Code and there's a lot of people going to die, that's genocide. Anyway, so that's me done. These are all things that I read and I continue to read and I educate myself because I have a duty, first of all, as a citizen, to stop genocide because that's what's happening. It's about to happen on a great big scale. They haven't even switched that electromagnetic radiation on. It's only at 20% just now. And I have a duty as a nurse under my code of conduct to protect the public. I don't work in the NHS because I choose not to do any of that now. If you're dancing, if you're still doing the dancing, I hope you've stopped. I heard a nurse recently say to somebody, actually he's reported, lots of people have reported this nurse. She said that she was paying the unemployment benefit of this man. It's vulgar. You're on full pay and your hospitals are empty. People are dying because they can't get treatment. The elderly death rate has skyrocketed during lockdown and not even from COVID, but the hospitals are empty. They're doing choreographed dance routines. They've got the time to do it in PPE gear that they say is short. That's abuse of NHS equipment that we're paying for. Yes, we pay for it. So when you're seeing this and you're taking your vouchers to go shopping, free parking, preferential shopping, food parcels, shouldn't be doing any of it. Because you're doing your job. You're doing what you were paid to do. It's a vocation, it's supposed to be a vocation. You shouldn't be doing any of that. You're not angels. You're not heroes. It's your job. And you're supposed to be doing it. And you're not heroes when you're sitting down or you're lying because it means you're complicit. You're not heroes when one particular nurse wrote on her Facebook page, if you want to protect the NHS, stay the F-U-C-K at home. That's what she wrote. That would mean that's a threat. Does that mean that people are sick or too frightened then to go in? They might have other things and not dare go. This stay at home and protect the NHS. Why do we need to protect it? It's there to serve the people. We pay for it. You don't need to be a genius to put all this together in your head. Anyway, I've done 34 minutes, so go ahead, make your next video on me. I don't care. God is my witness, and that's the only man that I kneel to, and the only person that I stand in judgment before. The only one. Have a good day.